Hi, welcome to the Crafty Manatee. Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet this Dainty Pumpkin. This is the smallest size pumpkin in my Dainty Pumpkin set. There's also a medium-sized pumpkin and a large pumpkin that you can crochet as well. Those patterns are all available for free on my Ribblr, so make sure to go check those out if you want to make the two larger sizes of this pumpkin. Here are the materials that you're going to need to crochet the smallest version of the Dainty Pumpkin. First, you're going to need 20 grams of worsted weight yarn in any color that you'd like. You can see for this pumpkin I used green, but for the pumpkin I'm making today, I'm going to use yellow, so you can choose any color that you'd like. You'll also need about 7 grams of worsted weight yarn in brown, or whatever color you choose to use for the stem. We'll need a 5mm crochet hook, or the letter H. You'll also need stuffing for stuffing the pumpkin at the end. And finally, you will need scissors and a tapestry needle for weaving in the ends at the end of the pumpkin. This pumpkin is worked flat and then it is turned into this pumpkin shape at the very end, which I will show you how to do. So we'll go ahead and get started with working the main section of the pumpkin. To get started, we are going to chain 20. So we are going to work that foundation chain of 20 stitches. All right, now that we have our foundation chain made, we are going to work one single crochet stitch into every chain across, starting in the second chain from the hook. So we're going to make 19 single crochet stitches across in total. So now we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. We're going to be working in a ribbed Suzette pattern, and I'll show you how to do that, but we're going to be working in the back loop only of each of these stitches across. So we're going to skip the first stitch, and we're going to work 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. So skipping that first stitch, working in the next stitch, we are going to work only in the back loop. So we're going to leave that front loop unworked and work in the back loop, 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet. Now we're going to skip the next stitch and do the same thing in the following stitch, and that is the pattern all the way across this row. We're going to skip 1 and then work 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. We're going to repeat that until 1 stitch remains at the end of the row. Alright, so we are at the end of that first row and we just have that one stitch left to work. So we're going to work a single crochet stitch through the back loop only of that last stitch. Now we're going to chain one and we're going to continue the same way we did the first Suzette row. We're going to skip one and work one single crochet stitch and one double crochet stitch into the following stitch. We're going to continue that across this row and we're going to have a total of 5 ribbed Suzette stitch rows, and I will meet you back when we have all 5 of those rows done. Alright, so I am back with those 5 rows of ribbed Suzette stitch done, as you can see here, and now we are going to move on to the next section of the pumpkin. So I'm going to always chain one at the end of my rows. I'm going to turn the work and we are going to work one single crochet stitch in each stitch across. So we're no longer working in just the back loops, we are going to work through the front and the back loops, single crocheting in every stitch across. And we're going to do that for 3 rows. So I will meet you back here after those 3 rows of single crochet stitches. So this is what our pumpkin is looking like now with those 5 rows of ribbed Suzette stitch and 3 rows of normal single crochet stitches. This is 1/6 of the pumpkin now. So as you can see on this pumpkin, we have 6 distinct sections of the pumpkin. So this is one of those sections. So we're going to repeat those 5 rows of ribbed Suzette stitch and 3 rows of normal single crochet stitches 5 more times for a total of 6 distinct pumpkin sections. So I will meet you back here after I have done what we have just done 5 more times. Alright, I am back with all of those sections completed. As you can see, we now have 6 sections of the ribbed Suzette stitch and 6 sections of the single crochet stitch. Alright, so now we are going to continue on by joining these 2 sides together. So we're going to fold it in half and single crochet through both sides along this short end here. So we're going to insert our hook through one side and then through the other and work a single crochet stitch. So now as you can see, that is joined together and I'm going to continue that along this edge. Okay, so now that we have combined those 2 sides together, I'm going to fasten off the yarn. But you want to make sure that you leave enough yarn here that you can wrap around this part of the pumpkin, top to bottom, at least 6 times. You might want to leave more just so you have a little bit more wiggle room during sewing. So I'm just going to wrap it around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 times, and I'm going to just cut an extra big long section just to make sure that I have enough for the next step, which is shaping the pumpkin. So now I'm going to still fasten off, pull that through so that it doesn't come unraveled. And now I'm going to flip my pumpkin around so that that single crochet edge is hidden inside of the pumpkin now. And I will show you how to shape the pumpkin. To start shaping the pumpkin, we're going to insert that long yarn tail we just made into a tapestry needle. We're going to pull that through, and then we're going to start sewing up the top. To do that, I'm going to insert my needle through any stitch on the top row, and then skip a couple stitches and insert it back. So we're going to keep it nice and loose, but just stitch back and forth like this all the way around the opening of the top of the pumpkin. Now that I've stitched all the way around the pumpkin, I am just going to pull that yarn tail very tightly to cinch up the pumpkin. So now we want to make sure that this is secure. So I just like to insert my needle over here on the other side and pull it through. And then insert it back on that same side. And do that a couple times, just kind of cinching this off, making it nice and tight. You can also go in the other direction, like I'm going right here, just adding in some stitches to make it secure. Okay, so now that that end is all sewn together, we want to do the same thing on the other opening. So we have this long opening here, and to get this yarn tail up to that side, I'm just going to insert it into the middle. So I'm going to just sew in and out of these stitches down here, just so that we can get the yarn tail to the other end of the pumpkin. This is the inside of the pumpkin, so you don't have to worry about how it's going to look. Our goal is just to get that yarn tail up to the top. Okay, so now we are at the top, and we are going to repeat what we just did to the other end of the pumpkin. So insert your needle every few stitches, pretty loosely all the way around the pumpkin. Okay, so I am all the way back around to where I started, but instead of pulling it tightly right away, first we need to stuff the pumpkin. So we're going to take our stuffing and just add it into the pumpkin. And now that all of the stuffing is in, we can pull it tightly. And just like we did with the bottom, we are going to sew up the top just by inserting that needle in the other side and pulling tightly. Now I'm going to turn the pumpkin, and just like on the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing in this direction. Alright, so just keep repeating, going in different directions until you feel like this is all sewn up. And don't worry too much, because one end is going to be the bottom and one end is going to get covered by the stem, so you don't have to be perfect. Now that we have that all cinched off, we have what is starting to look like a pumpkin. But we want to make sure that we have those distinct little ridges around the pumpkin that we don't have quite yet with this one. So to make those ridges, we want to take our long yarn tail that we've been working with and wrap it around the pumpkin from one side all the way around to the other. But when you're wrapping it, you want to make sure that you're wrapping it through the single crochet sections. So you want to leave all of those pretty ribbed Suzette rows out and just wrap around the single crochet sections. So you're gonna wrap it around and insert your hook into the bottom all the way through to the top. And now you want to pull very tightly. Honestly, as tightly as you can without breaking the yarn, because we want those ridges very defined. So now that we've done that, we want to find the next single crochet section. We're going to do the same exact thing. And you want to do the same thing to all 6 single crochet sections around. All right, so now as you can see, we have those defined little ridges around the pumpkin. You can go ahead and fasten off the yarn now if you feel like everything is secure enough. I personally like to go around again, or at least go around on some of the ones that aren't as defined yet if the yarn got a little bit loose. So I'm just going to go over it one more time, doing the same exact steps as before. All right, so now that we are done making all of those ridges in the pumpkin, we're just going to tuck in our yarn ends. So I like to just insert it anywhere into the pumpkin. I do that a couple times. I'm going to do the same thing with this other yarn tail, just insert it in a few times to hide it. And then we can cut the yarn tails. Now you can fluff it up a little bit, try to make all of those ridges symmetrical, but remember, pumpkins are not perfect in real life, so if some look a little bit funny, that's okay. Now the next step is to add on the pumpkin stem, so I will show you how to do that. All right, so now we are going to start on the pumpkin stem. To crochet the pumpkin stem, we are going to make a magic ring and make 6 single crochet stitches into that ring. Now we're going to pull that yarn tail tight, closing up the opening, and slip stitch into that first stitch. Now we're going to increase in every stitch around, so we're going to work one increase stitch in each stitch, and that is going to take us from having 6 stitches to having 12 stitches. The next round is worked in the back loop only. So we are going to single crochet in the back loop only of every stitch around. Now for the next 5 rounds, we're going to single crochet through both loops of each stitch around. So that is going to be 5 rounds of 12 stitches in each round. This is what your pumpkin stem should be looking like after those 5 rounds of single crochet stitches. Now we are going to start on the little tendril on the side of the pumpkin. So as you can see, this has the stem, and then it has this little curly tendril off to the side. To make that tendril, we are going to chain 20. Now we are going to make 2 single crochet stitches in each chain across, starting in the second chain from the hook. So starting in the second chain, we will work 2 single crochet stitches, and we are going to continue that all the way down to the base of the pumpkin stem. Now that we are back at the base of the pumpkin stem, we are going to skip one stitch on the stem and slip stitch into the next stitch. This helps anchor in that curly Q onto the stem. Now we're going to fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing. And you can shape that tendril because right now it's looking a little wonky, but if you just give it a twist and kind of get it into shape like that. All right, so the final step is to sew the pumpkin stem onto the rest of the pumpkin. First, we are going to stuff the pumpkin stem just with a little bit of stuffing. Now just position that tendril onto the top of the pumpkin and sew it on all the way around. Now I'm going to tuck that yarn tail into the pumpkin and cut it off. And here is the finished smallest version of the Dainty Pumpkin set. Like I mentioned, there are 2 other sizes for this pumpkin. Those patterns are available for free on Ribblr. If you do decide to make your own Dainty Pumpkin set, I would love to see it. You can create a project page on Ribblr or tag me on Instagram at @thecraftymanatee. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more crochet patterns and tutorials. You can also find all of my patterns on Ribblr, Ravelry, and Etsy. Thanks for watching. Bye.